So we are live. Welcome to another episode of the Greatness Engineering Hour. And as you know, I always bring you people with a particular story or a particular knowledge so that you can leave this platform inspired and more knowledgeable and be able to share the knowledge and the inspiration that you get here, that we're providing you. So again, today I'm bringing you, an amazing lady with a particular story, with a particular knowledge, with a particular expertise, and I know that you're gonna be inspired by this lady because sometimes people have stories that that actually are quite similar to ours, and I think it's good to see how they manage through those stories, especially when challenges come in, and what are the strategy that they use. So today I have with me Ritu Chopra, all the way from the US. She's an executive coach, a management consultant, a strategic advisor, an author, an international speaker, and also an award-winning film director. And she's gonna talk to her about this film during the show, and we'll get the opportunity to know about it and what it's all about. So she has a IT background, but as far as this film is concerned, she's been the winner of the Best Short Award, International Independent Film Award, CICCF Golden Fox Award. So she's going to explain to us again. And she's been leading and empowering corporate teams, helping them to resolve conflicts between IT and non-IT business partners, and increase employee engagement. And she is a very experienced technology professional, and she has extensive experience in Six Lean Sigma certification. And I think you've probably heard about it. And she's been providing IT solution, information and on information and cybersecurity, data privacy, which are the key things right now that everybody is online, and access to control, risk management, and business continuity, and also disaster recovery planning. She is the president of Chopra Management Services, where she provides professional motivational speaking and life coaching. So a very complete background. And I know that you're going to learn a lot from her. She is also a host and an executive producer of a TV show called Despite the Challenges. And the show is about people who overcome impending circumstances, so disabilities, and over barriers to contribute to society. So as you see, we're going to learn a lot from her. She's the founder as well of Lead My Way. And Lead My Way is a nonprofit organization that helps community deal with childhood trauma, provide assistance with life skills, and foster healthy relationship among young adults. She has a story. She's been recovered also from domestic violence, which is part of the work that she does as well. Helping people who have been victim of domestic violence as part of her coaching, and also as part of the Lead My Way nonprofit organization. So as usual, I ask you to have your pen, and your paper ready to take notes and to learn from Ritu today, because she has a lot. Like I said, she has a lot to share, and I hope that you're going to be inspired by her, like I was when I first met her. So don't go anywhere. I'm bringing Ritu with me now so that we can start our conversation.
started right into it. And that is the power of labels, right?
On memories. But as I got older, I started to be more aware of some of the abusive sides of
So, good morning, Ritu. Welcome to the Greatness Engineering Hour show. It's a pleasure to host you today, and I'm really excited to learn from you today with, this background that you have, very rich background, but at the same time to understand, how you bring value to the community and to people, and learning from your own, learning and, and building from your own experience, as and your own challenges, to be able to help others. So before we get into, our conversation, just wanted to ask you to introduce yourself to the audience and let us know, who is Ritu. Obviously, I've given them a little bit of, the introduction, but I know it's not all, and I think they're probably gonna want to hear it from you. So who are you? What are you doing? And what are the key things that you've done so far, and and the key highlight in your journey?
Well, thank you so much, Morel. I'm so pleased to be on your show. It's an opportunity, and as you mentioned, thank you for the glowing introduction. As you mentioned, our journey. So I will speak to our journey metaphorically in so many different ways. So, who is Ritu? I think I asked this question myself a lot. Who is Ritu? So, as I wear many hats, and how did this journey begin and where we are right now. So it had been in a pretty interesting conversation with myself, that I started as a ambitious young woman, with a very, very different career in mind as growing up and a college graduate, but life had a different plans for me.
Mm-hmm.
So things changed. I migrated to United States. Was I got married, and somehow the trajectory of life took a different direction than I was planning to. So, as the very young, naive, or inexperienced about life, you try to sort of figure out when you are very young. So you you do the best you can, and so looking back then, um, I wanted to continue my education, um, but the circumstances were not providing me that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So you make sense, and in that process I learned other things. I learned to be an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
I learned to be more accepting of things that were not in my control. And
Mm-hmm.
that began, as we talked about journey, and that began a parallel journey of inside and outside. And that still
Mm-hmm.
continues. And I think a lot of people would relate to that. And I hope that I can maybe answer some of their questions that they might be going through. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I feel we learn from each other's experiences. So the inward journey was helping me more to deal with, which was outward, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I had no controls.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Uh, you start accepting, you start making sense, you start doing something which is the right thing as much as the knowledge and resources you have. And fast forward to present, as you had mentioned, I have 2 decades of experience in IT in a very specialized area, alongside a big, you know, I became an author and speaker, and as life presented me opportunities, sometime I was thrown into to take charge in leadership role, or
Mhm, mhm,
other times I embraced that opportunity. At
mhm,
the same time, I'm seeking something else. So
mhm,
as you see this, my diverse portfolio of wearing so many hats, the question I sometimes find how to place myself. Someone asks me, "Who is Ritu?" Because
mhm,
that's I my inner conversation with me, where I am. But
mhm, mhm,
I am very proud to have a very supportive people around me, and the friendship, relationships, and my network, that they're so positive minded people that allow you to grow who you are and
mhm,
see and appreciate the work you do. So that's a kind of a very good place to be.
mhm, mhm.
I
but but it obviously now it's kind of, you've created this environment for yourself, and you basically know now who you are. Even if you're doing different things, you know where you want to be, you know where you want to go, I presume. But what have been those very difficult moments that you have before you could be in this beautiful place where you are, even if you still kind of looking for, for some answers?
So that is a caterpillar to butterfly sort of journey. And,
Mm-hmm.
so you go through constraints, you go through that pressure, you go through so much, and some of the example when I talk, something I often give some visual analysis or analogies is that my favorite one is the bridge. A
Mm-hmm.
bridge, the made of steel, before it's made into the shape of a bridge, it goes through
Mm-hmm.
a lot of pounding, a lot of heat,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of
Mm-hmm.
metal, and then it becomes so strong that it withstands all the elements of nature.
Mm-hmm. 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 Mm-hmm.
Be that bridge between your outer world, your inner world, and to be that strong bridge that can withstand the elements of nature, or metaphorically speaking, you can withstand anything that life throws at you. You have to be melted, pounded,
Mm-hmm.
shaped
Mm-hmm.
into something. So those are the life experiences. However, I say that now, but I know back when I was going through those circumstances,
Mm-hmm.
you people go through confusion, agony, hurt, um, and it all together, uncertainty, fear of unknown. There's a whole
Mm-hmm.
lot you have to balance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And while you're being shaped into something, and if you allow yourself to melt down completely, and not be able to shape into something, uh,
Mm-hmm.
it would change the trajectory in a very different direction. But in a meltdown, if you allowed yourself to be shaped into something stronger, then you are completely on a different path.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
all these opportunities that came my way, I sometimes question myself why I'm doing this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then I answer my own question, say that, okay, life presented me this opportunity. Either I close my eyes and walk away,
Mm-hmm.
or I do something about it. I
Mm-hmm.
choose to do something about it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I mean, I know that we're going to talk about the theme later on, but this month is actually the month of domestic violence, and I know that you experienced that yourself in your life, and just to have an idea from a global perspective, what have been how did you see it evolve, either building on your experience and talking to different other people? What have been the main challenges and the main successes that have actually helped you or them to be able to address this problem, and really get your last going, and come out come out in the light, and now, giving light to others. What do you think has been those things?
I can start speaking about myself. So,
Mm-hmm.
as I mentioned, I was born in a very educated family, in a very close knit family, and very healthy childhood we had
Mm-hmm.
as far as our
Mm-hmm.
relationships. And so this something, and then you move to the next phase of your life, and
Mm-hmm.
I moved thousands of miles away from my family, and my close network of people. So here, life changes drastically. So now you have to make sense of everything. And with the
Mm-hmm.
domestic violence, it's every person's perception is different based on their culture, their background, and
Mm-hmm.
when you think about it, how much they are aware of what's happening to
Mm-hmm.
to how people around them perceive it. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of dimensions and variables to it. When you're young and you're getting into a relationships, you don't know that.
Mm-hmm.
And you try to make sense, but it just doesn't make sense, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was my father as my mentor had instilled those values in me, and I was very ambitious young lady, and I
Mm-hmm.
got exposure. He was a well-known attorney, and I got very good exposure to a professional world being with him during my college years. So
Mm-hmm.
the strength and ambition that became much stronger in me, uh, and my sense of humor were
Mm-hmm.
the tools that carried me through my ambition,
Mm-hmm.
my sense of humor. So I
Mm-hmm.
find ways to deal with. It's not easy for everyone. Uh,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Circumstances I had, education I had, the foundation I had, um, I have come across hundreds and thousands of people. They Not everyone has those types of circumstances. So
Mm-hmm.
their ability to deal with varies so much on their mindset, how
Mm-hmm.
people around them support, to how much they are willing to get out of the ditch.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, as we will go into this conversation, talk about more about my film, what I found. So, I just want to kind of step back a little bit. I'm management consultant. I work
Mm-hmm.
with Fortune 500 companies here in US with global projects in
Mm-hmm.
the area of expertise. I I am a global citizen. I have worked with people from on every continent in every time zone. And
Mm-hmm.
I take pride in my ability to connect with people
Mm-hmm.
culturally,
Mm-hmm.
emotionally, at a human level, and regardless of which background they come from. So
Mm-hmm.
I when this opportunity to film this project came into fruition, so I was thinking of that this isn't a global issue, but it varies so much where people are, how they see, how the laws
Mm-hmm.
support, how society looks at it, the
Mm-hmm.
various degree of abuse, violence, and prevention, and community and societies. Um, uh, Initiatives to change things. So
Mm-hmm.
so much in play. So I went into my technologist. I went into my analytic mind.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that before I kind of define the project scope.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it was a big project. And as I started filming, I had no clue. I had
Mm-hmm.
no clue where I'm going to find people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I am not a filmmaker by profession. I've never been to a film school. I learned everything, and all I had was an inspiration and something to do.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I called it as my healing project. So, and was so much needed. And being a global citizen myself, looking at the scope of the issue and the problems and the need to do something about it, I know that it was an enormous task.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm
Mm-hmm.
here, I fondly say that one woman army, and without any filming background,
Mm-hmm.
without any filming background, I don't give up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't really give up on something that's worthwhile to do.
Mm-hmm.
To my amazement, to
Mhm.
my surprise, I do not have the answers. Where these people showed up, I am ever so grateful for
Mhm.
everyone, all these experts, all these amazing individuals who showed up to be part of their documentary. I
Mhm.
still
Mhm.
can't answer how that happened, but
Mhm.
it happened. And the documentaries won several awards, as you had mentioned. And I say that this topic needed attention.
Mhm.
Ritu Chopra won awards. I think it's more the topic won awards. And
Mhm.
how I'll take a look at it. My idea on this was that men, women, children, we all become victims of violence.
Mhm.
Either it's emotional, physical, or any kind of abuse. We all become victims. And in other perspective, and these are my thought processes,
Mhm.
that how I view it, in when we talk about sense of domestic violence,
Mhm.
mostly is seen gender-based violence.
Mhm.
Now, women are the recipient. In many cases, yes, the data shows that, but children, intimate partner, and elders,
Mhm.
people at all ages and all socioeconomic level, and can become victims of domestic violence, domestic abuse, uh,
Mhm.
any stage in their lives.
Mhm. Mhm.
So when I started looking at it as in being a technologist and analyst, so I looked at the intersectionalities, the long
Mhm.
the impact, you know. So my project started becoming bigger and bigger, and as I started filming, and more research I was doing, and more uh, things are revealing to me, and I look at intersectionality, and I feel like that if I am doing this project, I want to make um, uh, this project as to do justice to the topic.
Mhm.
By that, what I mean is that the intersectionalities, the long lasting impact of domestic violence,
Mhm.
it leaves
Mhm.
to men, women, and children. So if we say that children in a family, if there is in a domestic violence environment, a toxic relationship, children are exposed to it, and children include boys and girls. When
Mhm.
they grow up,
Mhm.
men and women, and when I hear about domestic violence as a women issue, I cringe inside me. And
Mhm.
it's not women's issue, it's society's issue, it's men's issue, it's women's issue, it's everybody's issue, it's society's
Mhm.
issue. And
Mhm.
and then I explored and I spoke to a lot of people who could give me some off the camera advice and input. Why
Mhm.
doesn't media do something about it? Why does media talk about it? Or this and that? If
Mhm.
violence is so widespread, etc. So the answers to that came that media focuses on today's problem, and this is an
Mhm.
ongoing problem. And
Mhm.
that clicked some other thoughts into me. So, and I started looking at is, how do we present this message as in a positive light as well, that things are not always bad. Issues can be resolved sometime due to health or sometime due to financial strains or something else happening. Abusive behavior becomes very apparent that may
Mhm.
not be there. So those are the cases where things can be done to resolve issues. So looking at that, I know that in my own family, in my own
Mhm.
work, and I've come across a lot of people who are good men, good husbands, good brothers, fathers, friends. So why should we not amplify those voices and show positive male role models? So the
Mhm.
segment in my documentary about that, and the documentary, as I see, as being global citizen and seeing that regardless of gender, we people can become victim to it of this. Our documentaries and Lead My Ways educational awareness programs are gender neutral and all inclusive because, regardless of who you are, what your identity is, and how you relate yourself, if people go through some painful life experiences, no matter what, it is a painful experience. And that's how I.
Mhm. And so, what are the key things that you find out? You obviously interview a lot of people, and in men and women from different background and from different country, obviously. So, what are the key things that you came to realize at the end that that are actually triggering all of this, triggering the violence from people who are the perpetrator, and what are the long lasting impact on the different victims, men and women and children, that you've seen, that you people told you that they've experienced so far.
So it's like I take that as a two-part question. So we'll come to the long-lasting impact a little bit
Mm-hmm,
later. But for now, what I found out, I think looking at the global perspective of domestic violence, um, the painful experiences are pretty pretty similar regardless of where you are. You are insecure,
mm-hmm,
you are not loved, you are not cared, or you are not given that a respect as a human being, or you're you're not a priority, you are
mm-hmm,
a person or human being. So,
mm-hmm,
so uh, depending on the cultural aspects of the exploitation of another human being, emotionally, physically, psychologically, is common.
mm-hmm,
However, the difference is the cultural context.
mm-hmm,
If you move from one culture to another, what person is feeling are the same feelings,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
but the conversation around is a little bit different based on the family dynamics, based on the financials, the available access to simple needs for life of life, right?
mm-hmm,
So those things change. And so those were pretty interesting dynamics. I had access to some data that became available to me from UN Women Org, and I looked at that as a looking at global perspective. And I was given a lot of white papers and some studies being done by universities, sociology departments, etc. So, and I delve into everything before I had a final film
mm-hmm,
created. So here's something to kind of give a broad perspective to the question. When I looked at these studies, they were done in different decades in a different part of the world,
mm-hmm,
and there's no consistent data to map that to something that's happening all over the globe as far as
mm-hmm,
studies are done. So you have some data points here and there. And as laws change, as generations change, as people's what was happening in 50 years ago, what kind of rights um, women had, or society, how they perceived social issues, and 50 years later things have changed. So that's pretty interesting dynamics to look at and present in a film. So I did the best to take those data points and try to bring the subject matter experts. They're phenomenal in my documentary, that they had wealth of knowledge, you know,
mm-hmm,
from so many different areas of life, that coming together to a conclusion is not an easy job here.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
It's not. Um, at least it wasn't for me. On that, okay, this is a problem and that's the solution. In IT,
mm-hmm,
probably we can do it, but in a ongoing, for centuries, people have experienced this. So what we present here in the documentary is a messaging that this lot of differences can be resolved,
mm-hmm,
can be better. Um, in extreme cases, when there is a life-threatening condition, a person has to make choice for themselves,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
especially not just for themselves, but for children if there are children involved.
mm-hmm. Mhm.
Because if you cannot resolve the differences, then what other choices you have?
Mhm.
So the individual level decisions make a big uh, uh, impact on people's life.
Mhm.
How to manage this. And even if we look at court system, which I have, in matrimonial laws and court systems, and I'm not an expert on any, I don't have legal credentials, but as in my studies in conversations with matrimonial court judges to so many other people that I spoke with, what mostly
Mhm.
the question that's asked, why don't you leave?
Mhm.
And people can't just pick up their bag and leave.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's boggles uh, a spectator as well as
Mhm.
a person, both from a very different level. Other thing that it's just like, sometimes someone in a film said something, it just like
Trigger.
triggers is something else in your mind.
Mhm.
I had one medical expert that said that when women come to their physician, and that's maybe the few minutes they get,
Mhm.
because a physician noticed something, that the symptoms and the explanation of the symptom does not relate.
Mhm.
Now, in US, in some states, it's a mandate, but in some states, it's optional for doctor to report.
Mhm.
I know for child psychologist and pediatrician in our state, it's a mandate for them to report injuries or
Mhm.
abusive signs uh, for children. But for adults, is I think it mostly remains optional, uh,
Mhm.
as the best I know at this stage.
Mhm.
However, that begs the need, like the emotional health, physical health, when we get into the long time impact, if there are physical injuries, people suffer for rest of their lives or for a long time.
Mhm.
There are emotional injuries, PTSD, and stress and trauma. I have gone through myself hundreds of 100+ hours of training from a victim assistant academy in our state for trauma based communication. Just
Mhm.
broaden my perspective of the issue, and how, as a founder of Lead My Way, we bring in educational programs and how we deal with issues that I, being in that seat of responsibility,
Mhm.
create these educational awareness programs. I wanted to understand that. It was eye opener for me,
Mhm. 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 Mhm.
uh, from a legal journey to post when they separate. We don't we when we get into relationships, we don't expect that for a young couple. Getting into relationship is a fancy word, right? So the
Mhm.
detail word, it's not in reality, right? It may be more of um, uh, a fantasy, but
Mhm.
realities of life hit in. And if we don't see them in the light of how to best preserve ourselves in a situation that's not going well, know the signs,
Mhm.
and take responsibility.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Right? So we, as educators or service providers, we can only give them what resources are available in their community, and the final decision or ultimate decisions, either final or maybe they are at a point that they don't know which way is the best, and they are starting points for them. Those decision individuals have to make.
Mhm. 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 Mhm.
The other part that I would like to say, when I researched, I looked at for pretty much whatever was available to me in the history of violence or violence against women, a lot of
Mhm.
material found. I looked at pretty much 100 years or more. So almost
Mm.
century, I looked at early 1900s, so how from different cultural perspective, and how laws have changed, how societies have changed, how relationships are changing, how younger generation is looking at the acceptance of living without marriage
Mm-hmm.
became later in the mid-century, in last century. Um, it's so many different dynamics that they come into place,
Mm-hmm.
right? However, when I say a human experience, as per se, as we can say, the agony, pain, insecurity, emotional abuse, whoever is being either perpetrator or victim, I think they both are feeling somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Perpetrator is also going through some sort of uh, uh, a mental health issue or emotional wellness issue. As
Mm-hmm.
people don't want to hear the word mental health, but it's some sort of trauma or some sort of an obsessive behavior that's causing uh, for them to treat their partners that way.
Mm-hmm. 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 And that's a key thing. Let's have. I mean, I have quite a few. It's full house today. There's quite a lot of comment or insight or question in a way. So I have. So Sean is in US. Hey Sean. So she herself is a survivor of domestic violence as well. So she said that it's a global issue, which you mentioned as well. And sometimes, and we sometimes don't know the sign, even being educated. And I think that's actually what you were talking about. You were so, eager, you were ambitious, and you didn't see those signs until you just realize, oh, something is wrong, and that's very difficult. And Sean, again, she's talking about the legal aspect, which is, it varies from country to region. So the to tackle that, it becomes very, it becomes complicated. We have Florence. She's watching from Burundi, and she's find the conversation very powerful. And she's also working with women in Burundi there. And again, Sean, I mean, it's very close to her heart, and she has a group as well. She's also doing, education for women who are going through the domestic violence. So the long-lasting effect can determine how a person move forward in life. I found it could drive a person to overachieve or leave a person stuck in the cycle of violence. So there's basically the two extreme that she thinks is happening. And then we have successes watching from Nigeria, and is noticing that domestic violence is on an increase as a result of COVID and people being, put together. And again, shown most definitely in part due to the social distancing issue. And I think she was actually responding to success. So, I mean, that's as you can see, people from all over the world, trying to address this thing, but as we know, it doesn't go away. It actually doesn't go away. And with the pandemic, things are tends to go a little bit, on actually tend to be even more difficult, especially when there was already domestic violence happening. So one of the question that I have in your documentary, and in people that you talk to, how do you think, have you seen, people who have actually a positive end, to that, either the victim or either the perpetrator, and what have they have done to be able to move forward and really minimize the long term negative impact of the domestic violence.
Yes, yes, we came across many stories, the positive results. If there's an anger management, there's
Mm-hmm,
some issue or financial issues, people don't know how to express. Uh,
mm-hmm,
a lack of understanding and lack of communication, where something that can be easily resolved becomes another a big issue because they are
mm-hmm,
not being able to communicate. It comes out as a very angry response to a
mm-hmm,
situation. And when they both parties, there's some sort of counseling or mediation, a
mm-hmm,
lot of these minor differences are resolved.
mm-hmm, 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 mm-hmm.
Right? So
But
the relationship does not have to end. It's just that they need to come, be open on a communication and be understanding of their personal circumstances. You
mm-hmm,
know, in many cultures, these are like a large families um, structures.
mm-hmm,
The close family lives together, and there's so much influence. Everyone has their own opinion, and
mm-hmm,
a lot of time the elder members of the family, the younger people do not want to oppose them. And situation that I have come across and the expert I talked to, that uh, the um, it's, the solution here will be to, okay, can we as a generation look at these issues in a large family settings, can we live separately and still be a family,
mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm,
But at the same time, they may want grandparents to babysit their children
mm-hmm,
or be there for them. So even for young couples, it's very challenging. There is no one solution that one
mm-hmm,
person can present, say, here we go. Why don't you just follow these steps? It doesn't happen that.
mm-hmm,
Each individual, there are different dynamics.
mm-hmm,
How other person perceives, but we always see that when there are minor differences, if people are willing, they can easily resolve that. The help is available. That's our focus, is the help is available.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Whichever level of your journey you are, um, you're not sure that if it's domestic violence, or maybe you're feeling that way.
mm-hmm,
Maybe as the person who is feeling that way, they need to do some
mm-hmm,
work
mm-hmm.
on themselves, right? So we don't know that. So the best thing is to seek help, talk to someone, talk to experts, uh, be open to the idea, and seek some help.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But I think sometime what's going on is that the person doesn't realize either the perpetrator or they just don't want to see it, and it becomes very difficult because if they don't want to see it and they don't want to talk about it, then they don't feel like they need help, and things just keep becoming very, I mean, take another turn because we've seen things being really, really bad, and people losing their life because they've known that they had trigger, they've known that they were doing certain thing, but they didn't feel like it was warrant, it was they had to go and seek for professional help because they thought that this I can sort it out myself, or there's no problem at all. So I mean, as a family, when we see this, what are the signs that we have to look for? What are the signs that we have to look for to say, oh, okay, even if the person, and in this case most of the time the victim doesn't see that she is or he is in a domestic violence situation, what are the signs that we have to look for, and how can we help to get this communication going and make sure that people, the people who are actually suffering and the perpetrator get some help.
So On that, the two sides of it is that to know the signs. In U.S.,
Mm,
pretty much in every social worker, therapists, uh,
mhm,
professionals, service providers use Duluth model, that is
mm,
power and control model, that there's emotional, financial, physical abuse that takes place.
mhm,
And I don't have clinical background as speaking.
mhm,
When
mhm,
doing this whole big projects, I came across so many. So, in my limited capacity, what I can say is that if in your household you're not feeling secure and safe, and you are being talked down and being um, constantly reminded of you are no one,
mhm,
that is a good sign for people to know
mhm,
that if you don't feel a normal human being in your own dwelling, in your own home, you're scared inside your own home,
mhm, 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 mhm,
that is a sign that it's not normal.
mhm, 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 mhm. So and I think we need to understand that because it's happening, and I think the media is not helping because we see so-called leaders doing certain things, and and it actually come and is being emulated into the household. And how do you call it out? Because you basically get used to that, and you think that that's the norm, especially for children. You think that that's the norm, and you don't really question anything. And by the time you realize, you get damaged,
Yeah.
psychologically. And I think people start to really react when it's the physical, but yet it start with
Yeah.
psychologics, and also, I mean, using the finance as well. You talked about
Mhm.
financial bullying people financially
Yeah.
and all kind of thing, but we only see people reacting when it goes now to the physical, and yet we have to stop it when it's already even before the physical. And Sean is actually commenting here. She's talking
Yeah.
about the loot model, which is widely
Yeah.
used. And for some of the signs, she said it's withdrawal, isolation, and explain bruises that you can't
Yes.
talk about.
I
Yeah.
wasn't aware how widely it was used, but I know that it's used in US widely, so I can comment on that.
Mm-hmm.
The children part of it is really sensitive. That breaks my heart because
Mm-hmm.
the cycle of violence repeats. The PTSD, the long-term trauma from the experiences, and for them to be in healthy relationships when they become adults,
Mm-hmm.
so many studies are there.
Mm-hmm.
I have, when we do events, we have volunteers that, as they themselves, as a little boy or little girl, have gone through
Mm-hmm.
experience, and they got into the relationships that
Mm-hmm.
became uh,
Right.
unfunctional.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. So this, it depends how you view the issue and how you
Mm-hmm.
resolve. There's so many people that off camera, and when we do film screening, or we hear a lot of stories, and
Mm-hmm.
people, they say, okay, we separated and then we became friends
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
we had children and a joint custody. So, okay, um, each situation is different, each person's perspectives are different, right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe in this case they made the decision that they were not um, compatible to live in a single household,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
separation was the way, but they both love children. Here I want to make a very interesting point. I spoke to a matrimonial court judge of 25 years of her practice, and she had written a book, and she talked about when families split,
Mm-hmm.
environmental impact of domestic violence. And
Mm-hmm.
I was blown away at that time. I never thought of that way until I had a conversation with her. She's saying that now that a family that was living in a one household, now there are two households, so you have more the construction they for as living in two household, the second household, you have the construction materials, environmental materials, electricity, so that's being used twice because now you have two families
Mhm, mhm, mhm,
living, which should have been one family. So if we start looking at that way, I don't know if we are capable of measuring the environmental damage.
mhm, mhm,
There's not enough data, but it was a thought process to look at. Yes, it's not just the physical, mental, legal, financial, psychological impact. There's an environmental impact.
mhm,
So
mhm,
I mean, I could talk for a long time on the long lasting impacts, but for the conversation, we focus on an individual and a family.
mhm, 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 mhm,
Uh, so people have come to me and they said that, I was mad at my mom. Why didn't she stand up?
mhm,
I say, I didn't want to do anything with it. So I moved away. So it's like each individual, how they feel strongly about it. We listen to the stories, how they while they were going through the situation,
mhm,
very different experience. Year, Years later, when people look back, and their opinions may change towards either the person or themselves or generally just about the topic. However, what I have seen consistently, that it leaves so deep sadness in people.
mhm. And how do you? I mean, how do people live with it? I mean, what did they say? I mean, you yourself now, are you really able to move on and forget about it, or what what do you still have triggers? Do they still have triggers from when you talk to them? uh how do they manage, those this afterlife when they get out of this environment where they're not safe, where they've been, reduced to not being human? How do they,
So on a
what is the result of your research?
So, on a clinical level, I don't have credentials to guide people or give advice on that way. But as a human being and myself, I
Mm,
was I was educated. I came from a very healthy childhood. I was really aspiring what I wanted to do in life. That helped me, and I always say that not everyone has those circumstances. So
mm,
it is our inner strength that helps us. Um,
mhm,
I can only say a few things that people may say, relate to, that always find a purpose,
mhm,
find something. I can't say that you should forget about it. It's very difficult to forget.
mhm,
However, you have to heal yourself.
mhm,
When you heal yourself or allow to begin the healing process, things happen.
mhm, mhm, mhm,
Things happen. The triggers may be, visible for people, but you need to provide yourself a surrounding, a positive environment. And there's a lot of positive things
mhm,
out there. We have to just make attempt to look for that.
mhm,
Find a organization that gives you something to contribute to. So you forget
mhm,
pain, you heal your pain. If you keep holding it inside, it's still inside. You have to
mhm,
allow that to um, go away. It
mhm, mhm,
doesn't. Depends on the depth, depends on person's strength, but that's what we focus on. Lead my way to a better future. There is so much help available outside. We
mhm,
have to make an attempt. And for me, lead my way was my purpose. I have
mhm,
see that I have plenty of things to do.
mhm, mhm,
I
mhm,
find time for it because it was a healing journey for me.
mhm. And I have shown here, she said you never forget, you just move forward, at least for me. So like you said, it's really a personal decision.
Yeah.
that people have to take. Nobody can take the decision for them. They have to see what's what works for them, because
Yeah.
that's very
And,
important.
and
And
and I think time is a big healer.
mm-hmm,
Right. I had people, one woman showed up in every film screening we did in our vicinity.
mm-hmm,
She, a gray haired woman, she showed up and she exited the room as soon as QA session started.
mm-hmm,
And I saw her when I noticed her, and I said, "This face seems familiar." And then, I noticed her the third time, and I noticed her nodding her head at a certain parts of the documentary was screening
mm-hmm,
was playing. So that was to me, she hasn't healed yet. So
mm-hmm,
what drew her, where she found out about this announcement for screening at a, you know, either a library or senior center or somewhere else, her coming over and over, I think she was yearning. That's my assumption, that she was yearning for healing, and she wasn't really allowing herself to stay and ask questions, so she exited the room each time.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
These are observations I made. A lot of people would come and ask questions after the screen.
mm-hmm,
When everyone else has left, they wait. So that's where they are at the boiling point in their mind, that
mm-hmm,
I need to do something about it. And
mm-hmm,
I think they should, they must, we must allow ourselves to heal. Um,
mm-hmm,
we must find ways. And uh, the famous quotes, seek and you shall find. So,
mm-hmm,
where there is a will, there is a way. So
mm-hmm,
it has to start inside. And as I said in the beginning in my introduction, that I had two parallel journeys, the inward and outward. At that time, you don't know what's happening to you. You're being
mm-hmm,
pounded. You can't think when you're being pounded. It's when that
mm-hmm,
you have been shaped, then only
mm-hmm,
that you can come back to it and say, okay, yes, embrace what life has given you. Find something positive in it. That's my uh, way of saying that, how it helped me. I always thought in the most darkest moment, um, there was a purpose for me to do.
mm-hmm,
Why I was taken away thousands of miles away from my family, from in a bright future, and um, in a one of the best nations on the planet to live in, with such a painful experience.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
How
mm-hmm,
I would think.
mm-hmm,
But you have to make sense of your own life. You have to find that courage, and you have to find that network of people that who are available for you to hear you out,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
and they can give you a direction, because we all need some direction at certain points in our lives.
mm-hmm,
For
mm-hmm,
some people, faith helps. If you people visit our website, leadmyway dash usa.org, we have a segment where expressions of healing.
mm-hmm,
People have either poetry or art or music,
mm-hmm,
something that helps them to cope with.
mm-hmm,
Find your strength there. You'll find so much that there's so many people out there might be wanting that.
mm-hmm,
Seek out. Now the technology makes this global platform available. You're in Australia, I'm in US, and
mm-hmm,
we're speaking via a technical platform, and
mm-hmm,
instant messages coming to your the broadcast, so we can see
mm-hmm,
that how we can connect like-minded people, or who is wanting that support. um, so my message to people who might be in a situation is that, don't feel alone, and seek help.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And sometimes that's not, and that's just the only message that people need, is that there's help available. Just seek for help. And Sean, I mean, she's doing a lot of work as well. helping women, and I think that's part of a that has been part of a healing process as well. So she's keen to connect after with you, and she's also in the US, so that
Thank you,
makes things
Sean.
a little bit more. Um, and she said that the trigger will come, I believe, at time. I went through the process, and healing came from. So you talked about a purpose, and
Yeah,
from trusting Jesus, and I'm now helping others. So
yeah,
that's just how she's created her healing process, and
yeah.
now
I,
living a life, and
I do talk about in my documentary the role of religion. My idea was that the name "Lead My Way," it was my prayers in my
mm-hmm,
most darkest time. Lord, lead my way.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
So,
mm-hmm,
when I was setting up this organization, and it just stood out so strongly for me, since
mm-hmm,
then, lead my way. I think faith is a very big part of people's life.
mm-hmm,
I wanted to have conversations with faith leaders, but it was very difficult to get their attention for this topic,
mm-hmm,
to be on camera, to be very honest. Um, because even if we don't feel we are a religious person that go to our places of worship on a regular basis, or we believe in this or that, but when we go through traumatic experiences, we go through troubles, very often we say, God, why me?
yeah, yeah,
God,
yeah, yeah,
help me.
mm-hmm,
And at that time, where do we turn to? And
mm-hmm,
this was a question for me, and I'm sure that this was a question for a lot of people out there.
mm-hmm,
So I did address this topic of, how do we seek help when it comes to being in a traumatic situation, and the role of faith or religion.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I don't have answers for that, but the questions were there.
Mm-hmm, 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 mm-hmm. Let my way. Okay, all right. So let's have just a short break, and I think the conversation was just so profound that I even forgot some of the videos that I had to put. So let's have a break, and we will come back to conclude the conversation on this topic. And maybe you'll let us know a little bit more about how people can connect with you, because I think there's going to be quite a few people that already doing also the work, a lot of work on domestic violence. I would want to connect with you and to what you do in Lead Your Way. So don't leave, don't go anywhere. We are coming back after this short video.
Nijemani nyoinyo, ikambano renio, anchomono zange wami, omwe wanofunga. Nijemani nyoinyo, ikambano renio, anchomono zange wami, omwe wanofunga. La 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 la, la 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 la.
So we are back. We are back with Ritu, and we are wrapping up this very deep conversation on domestic violence, but also on the film, the research that she's done, and what came out of it. So Ritu, just to know exactly how people can connect with you, and if there's something coming up that you really want the audience to know about and participate if they can. Just let us know what's going on your side.
Absolutely. So people can go to our website, Lead My Way, uh, hyphen USA. I have put
Mhm.
that in a chat, and
Mhm.
here they can see what we do. They can connect with us. They can connect with us on our Facebook page, and just let us know on our speakers bureau. We have a drop down if they are interested to participate in any way, and we create educational programs. Awareness programs, and we would like to have few other people come and be our ambassadors, uh,
Mhm.
take carry on this work in their local communities. So that would be great. And what's coming up? Um, October is a National Domestic Violence Awareness Month in US, and I'm
Mhm.
sure in other countries and other places there are some other days, may not be the same month. So on October 24th, Saturday, we will be hosting a virtual summit. That's The summit is Courage Community Communications during COVID 19. As you had mentioned, that there has been an increase uptick in domestic violence, child neglect, child abuse cases during COVID.
Mhm.
Our experts on this panel are phenomenal.
Mhm.
Phenomenal. We have four panels, and each panel has a set of 3 to 4 speakers. And I think there would be a lot of conversation in general how to cope with depression, mental illness, or loneliness, which has become really increased during these times. And we also will have phenomenal speakers as well on empowerment panel, bystander intervention, positive male role models, and mm, uh, will also address the long-lasting impacts of domestic violence from a global perspective. So
Mhm.
please stay tuned. Go to our website. There will be within next few days there will be a registration information. The event is free to register. People can make a donation if they like. Um, However, the registration is free. The registration information would be posted within next few days.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. All right. So, for everybody, and I think Sean might you might actually want to have a look. So there's the go on the www lead my way usa.org and make sure you check what's there. And there's the conference, the virtual conference coming in on the 24th of October. Again, free conference, but donation are welcome, and your participation, obviously, if you have any input to have. But like Ritu was saying, it's gonna be phenomenal as far as the content and insight. It's gonna be and I'm gonna take part as well because so I'm really excited about it, and basically to bring positivity and to bring my knowledge and what I've seen so far and solution that I think can be looked at as well. So that's all for today. So just before we leave, Ritu, any particular message that you want to leave the audience with?
Life is beautiful. Always look at the positive side. Find some purpose inside.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I come back to my example of being pounded uh,
Mm-hmm.
and melted and heated, before you can shape into. So those life experiences, when we are going through it, are traumatic and painful, but humans have a amazing sense of endurance.
Mm-hmm.
I have come across amazing stories of strength that people endured, and
Mm-hmm.
they do well in life. So there's
Mm-hmm.
always something that we can take those experiences and look at that way. That was past. I am
Mm-hmm.
better
Mm-hmm.
now. I am in more powerful position, and I have future to look forward to. So find that inner strength. Find
Mm-hmm.
things that inspire you, and slowly that's a journey towards healing.
Mm-hmm. 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 So look at things on a positive way And greatness is always there. Greatness is inside of you, so find your greatness and unleash it, and don't get stopped by any negativity or anything that got pounded on you. Get out and make good things, find your purpose. And for those who've been through the trauma of domestic violence, find a purpose, and find a way to heal yourself. It might be by opening up and helping others, or anything that you think some of we saw that with Sean, it was a faith, and now she's helping other women to to manage and to get out of domestic violence as well. So thank you so much, Ritu, for your time and for sharing your expertise. It's been really a deep conversation, and we know that domestic violence is a global issue, and like you said, a societal issue, and it doesn't go away. So we have to take the time to talk about it, take the time to find a way to help the community and the people that are going through it, and make them understand, like you said, that life is beautiful, and we have to look at the positive side of it. So help them to have the right mindset, and help them to refuse to be victims of people who want to dehumanize them. So thank you very much for everybody who have been here tuning live, and for those who are going to watch the replay, I hope you're going to enjoy, as we've enjoyed, the listening to Ritu and her knowledge, and tell us about the result of her study. And just for the movie, where can we find the movie? Where can we watch the movie? Is it out? And any
We,
link or anything that where we
we
can find
have
the.
a 8-minute preview on our website. Because
Mm-hmm,
of the sensitivity of some topics, we don't publish it, but we
mm-hmm,
do welcome people. We are in the process of creating a training program based on the film for service providers. So we're looking for some people who would take advantage of that training, and then film is by invitation only to
oh,
be free.
okay. Okay, so the film is for private use, which is for your program. So for to be able to view that, then you
We
have
make
to.
it available for college campuses or any organization that helps victims and survivors, or educational, or students of sociology departments, etc. So we make it available for them, but it's by
Mm-hmm,
invitation,
by invitation.
by
Mm-hmm.
request when they make that.
Okay. All right. So if you are part of this category that Ritu just mentioned, please connect with her if you want to have the movie, and see how you can learn from the project that she's completed to help this cause. So thank you very much, everybody. I'll be back on Monday, and on Monday it's gonna be very interesting because we're gonna talk to a mom of 13 children, and she's going to talk about all the trauma as well that she went through, and how she managed to get out of it, and the process and strategy that she's used. It's going to be very interesting because I just can't imagine myself with 13 children. So I'm really eager to know how she's managed to to raise all those children, and still be standing. So thank you very much, and I see you all hopefully on Monday, 9 a.m. in the US, and 9 p.m. for me, and in Europe it's going to be afternoon. Europe and Africa is going to be afternoon. So take care, and have a great weekend. And I see you, like I said, on Monday for another episode of the Greatness Engineering Hour show. And thank you, Ritu, again for such a beautiful conversation.